Hi, this is Ashley Shepard. We're at the NAMM show 2018. I'm talking with Robbie here, and you're originally from the UK.
Yeah,
but you're also spending time here in the States.
That's
here in
right.
LA.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So, just what's the latest thing? What are you working on right now? What's your current thing?
I've just finished a score for an animated movie.
Okay. Good times with animation, right?
Yeah, it's my first one. Yeah, it was fun. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Very different to live action.
Can you tell us a little about it, or is it okay?
It was fun to do. It's very different, obviously, because a lot of the work you did was with like wireframe and things that were partially rendered. And
right.
So it's a very different process to getting the emotion for things that you can't physically see.
Dialogue so much.
But it was really good fun, and been doing a lot of producing and mixing as well for artists and stuff, projects. Yeah.
So you're keeping busy.
Very busy, yeah.
And so, if I understand correctly, you have a studio in England.
Yeah, I have a studio in the UK. Years. And then I'm just working from a satellite sort of setup in LA. Yeah.
Sure, it makes it easier, right? Communication and everything. But your background is more from the electronic music side of things, right?
Well, I classically trained on piano, but when I was 11. Someone gave me an album by an artist called Howard Jones, and I was like,
and you were done.
And I was madly into synths after that point.
Sure.
In fact, I ended up then being his MD and stuff years on later in my life.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no, I got headlong into electronics. So
what was the first synth? What was the first toy you got your hands on?
My first synth that was a proper synth was a synth called a Korg Delta. It was like, I got it from a second-hand guitar shop when I was about 11.
Just
so I mean, I was hooked after that. So electronics and kind of music technology has always played a massive part in my kind of development in my career in music. So yeah,
it's interesting, because the technology is one side of the brain, and the heart and emotion and the thing is the other side of the brain. So we're constantly
trying to keep the two juggling. So you don't end up with too much technology. You can't outwork what you're really feeling emotionally, or the other way around, you strip it back too much so you don't have enough things to kind of inspire you to do the job. So it's a balance.
That's a great way of looking at it. So well, what are some artists that you're producing, or maybe something that you're finished with that we can listen to if we want to check out?
Because of my work with Howard Jones, I've ended up over the years by default doing quite a lot of things for all sorts of artists who were known starting off in the 80s, so I've worked with all sorts of people from the 80s, but I had a track on Nicki Minaj's Pink Friday album, and all sorts of other things, really. I'm what you call a musical polymath. I don't like to kind of get too stuck in one genre. I like to kind of just push myself into doing all sorts of things. As long as I feel like the music isn't generic and there's something interesting about the artist, then I'm always happy to kind of go for it.
Okay, well, that's awesome. I mean, you're in a lucky position. You're doing film scores, producing artists. I mean, I know, in film scoring, you get to do anything, right? There's no stylistic restrictions. You're not following an artist's trajectory. You're just
although you say that, but there's always a director's vision. So
that's true.
So you always have to work within that as well. So but
I mean, you can find yourself with world beat textures and orchestras and electronics and guitar and whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Interesting. So in your studio in England you have a full surround system, so you're working in surround from the get-go on a film score. Do you think that way?
Yeah, my first proper studio monitors that I really spent money on and really loved, I had an original set of the Dynaudio BM6s when they first came out. I had those
passive ones, right?
Yeah, the active ones.
They were active.
Yeah, they were the active ones. Yeah, and I loved them so much. And then I started getting into working with films and also surround mixing for artists, and so I just naturally gravitated towards the air system. So I ended up with a 5.1 air system with a big air-based sub, which I've got to this day, and it's like I will never change it, because it's like, to me, monitors are kind of like your second ears. Without those things that you really can trust, it's kind of like you're shooting in the dark. So
true.
So and then I've got a pair of the little BM5 compacts that I take around when I'm doing sort of work out and about. And then most recently, out in the States here, I've got the LMD7s and the 9S sub.
Okay,
just
the new sub.
Yeah, just the new sub, because I wanted something that was kind of the nearest kind of family kind of sonic imprint to the Air 6s, which I have as my main studio monitors. So, yeah, I mean, to me, good monitors, a computer with massive, processing power, and a couple of good mics, and some good software that you know intimately are the most important things for me. Everything else is just like icing on the cake.
Well, so how's your process work? You get a film or an artist. I mean, where do you start? Do you like prepare sounds, or do you start sequencing things and then find sounds?
I'm a little bit subversive in what I like to do. I like to work with an artist who comes from one thing. I don't know, maybe like a folk artist or whatever, a rock artist, and say, well, this is what you do. How about we do a bit of this with what you do? So I like to bring in something a little bit more interesting and different to try and make it a bit more of a hybrid thing.
Okay.
So sounds and textures for a project are very important to me. So I either focus in on one particular instrument or bit of software that I really want to really delve into deeply for a project and kind of try and get as much out of it as I can. So there's a jumping off point that you can kind of come back to and kind of feel like you're developing something that isn't just like, let's just throw a bit of this in, let's throw a bit of that. It's something that feels like it's actually intrinsic to the artist or the film.
So it keeps consistent. If you pick a particular instrument, let's say, or guitar, let's just say guitar, you're going to create all these textures in guitar to have a palette to choose from in that department, or a piece of software that you're using.
A bit of software or an
let's
instrument.
Explode it and see how we can use it.
A little instrument I've come back to time and time again, which I love, is a little instrument by a company called Teenage Engineering called the OP1.
Is that
tiny little thing? Looks like a Casio VL tone, but it's an amazingly powerful but very hands-on synth. People think it's a toy, but I can't tell you the amount of work I've done on that for films and albums.
Plus it's so little.
I can take it anyway. So tools for me, whether they're software, whether they're instruments, they have to have an immediacy to them. Not immediacy in that they have lots and lots of presets where you can go, I'll pick that, because then your music has got no individuality, but an immediacy that you can immediately turn them on, be inspired, and make things great out of them without having to look in manuals and think, oh, when was the last time I used this? I can't quite remember how to do it.
Intuitively
so
tactile.
when it's like that, it just I have no interest in them. So the tools I tend to have rationed my setup of like musical instruments and synths and stuff has tended to kind of shrink over the years to just a few things that I really know well and really love to use.
And they have some sort of like, I don't know how to say this, like riding a bike. I mean, you can get your hands on it and get a visceral reaction from it. You're touching it and it's doing, and you're getting feedback like a guitar. I mean, a guitar gives that to you.
I can learn an instrument, really learn the depths of it and all menu diving and all that, but when you've got an artist sitting there or you're up against a deadline, you don't want to be doing that. So for me, it's all about, it has to be there, it has to be plugged in, it has to be ready to go, you have to be able to do something great with it and move on.
So you say you need a couple of mics. What sort of recording do you do? I mean, obviously vocals and that sort of stuff. Where do you find yourself going out?
Mostly I do vocal recording, and to me, the vocals, I listen to a lot of modern production, and vocals, particularly in like sort of EDM world, just seem to be like the vocals just like another instrument. It's so processed, and it's just like it could have been a synth or something playing the part.
Feels remixy.
I like a vocal. I like to build tracks around a vocal. So I always gravitate into working with vocalists who have kind of a character to their voice, and I want that to be the centerpiece of the recording. So it's very important to me that I spend a lot of time recording a vocalist well and making them feel comfortable to give the performance, and then to bring all the other stuff in as a backdrop around them.
Interesting.
So I've got a couple of mics. My mics aren't actually that exotic. Again, mics are a very subjective thing. But I think certain mics just work amazingly with certain artists. But one of the mics I've had for 15, 20, maybe more than that actually, I'll just give my age away, that I've had for a long time is a Rode mic called the Classic 2. It was their flagship valve mic.
Right.
And I've just used that over and over again. And I've got a few other mics, and I've got other mics, pencil mics if I need to do a guitar or something like that. Right. I'm never really miking up anything bigger than that. If I do that, I would go somewhere else, get somebody who's really good at doing that to mic it, and then bring back the files and work with it. That's how it kind of work.
Well, so in your studio, where do you sit? What are you looking at when you're doing your work?
Well,
how does it look from your point of view?
I use the most powerful 24-core current Mac Pro trash can thing, and I have a bit of an unusual setup because I have these very widescreen LG 34-inch widescreen
the panorama
monitors, and I have 2 of those, one above each other.
Oh, okay.
So you think it was weird because it's quite tall.
Yeah.
But it means within the center field, without having it really spread wide,
you've got
a lot of real estate. So I usually have I work in Logic. I have done since like Logic 1. I mean, I used to have, when it was Notator on an Atari, I've never deviated. I have that. I have all like the arrange window open on the bottom screen for doing all my sequencing and writing, and then the top screen is usually the mixer.
Okay.
So it's like a massive long mixer. And I have that. I have the Dynaudio's stereo pair behind me. One that sits above.
Sits above the monitor, pointing down.
Center, yeah.
So
and
how do you look at picture? Do you just watch picture on one of those screens?
Yeah, that's
just
right.
Sort of put it up wherever it's convenient.
Yeah, put it up there.
Okay.
And then I use Universal Audio Apollo hardware for my
your
ins and outs. And then I have the synths that I have over to my left, and a modular, and a master 88 note Native Instruments controller on my right. So everything's kind of like just there. It's just within my,
so keyboard's off to the right. That's what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah.
It's like some people have a little mixer in front of them, some people have a keyboard in front of them, and the mixer's on the side.
And I'm obsessed with there being no mess. So people come to my studio and they go, does anybody actually use this studio? Because everything's neatly, you can't see any cables anywhere.
Right.
It's all, but I like it to. I can't deal with clutter.
Well, it affects your mental space too, right? If the place is cluttered, your brain's like.
I just like it to be, I know some studios, people love having that kind of ramshackle instruments propped up against the wall, and how do we plug this in, how do we do that? I can't deal with that. I just want it all there, ready to go.
And tight and good to go.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what's something recent that was particularly interesting to you, whether a film score or an artist or something? And it doesn't. It's not. I'm not asking you for your flagship thing. Just something that was intriguing to you that we can go check out. That you can be like, hey, this was a neat thing.
I have done so very recently, but unfortunately I can't talk about it because I've signed. But something I did relatively recently was for a Canadian band called 1,000 Foot Crutch. Okay. And they're some of a big Canadian rock band, and they basically came to me and asked me and a couple of other people to do some remixes of their stuff. But what I didn't want to do was just do like let's speed this up and turn this into a dance mix. So I kind of thought, if I was producing this from scratch,
what would you do?
I had the singer in to sing, what would I do? So I basically stripped everything away.
Particularly
I did a track called Be Somebody, which was real full-on.
I'm sorry, what was the track?
Be Somebody.
Be Somebody.
Yeah, that was a good example where it was a full-on just standard rock thing, ballad. I took it all out, everything, and just kept the vocal, and it turned into this kind of almost sort of modern Depeche Mode style, electronic, sort of with lots of sound, sort of sound manipulation and stuff on it. And it's just amazing how the context of music changed everything. So
the meaning and the feel.
I learned that so much when I started doing film scoring. When you'd be sent a film, the first time I was sent a film and there was no music on it, it was just dialogue. And then you start putting stuff in, you realise the power. You realise the power you have.
Set the mood, or change the mood.
Change the mood. You realise the power of how that really sets the tone. And the same for mixing or remixing or reimagining other people's music.
Right.
As soon as you strip the vocal out and use the vocal,
how does it make you feel and you react to that?
It totally changes people's perception of that. So I do get called on quite a lot to do that now, because people like that aspect that I don't want to just do like a four to the floor dance mix.
You come at it from the other angle. You provide this unique perspective. That's cool. Well, and I'm glad you gave us that example, because that's what you were talking about first, where you're like, you come at it from this whole other place. You want to bring this different element into what they've already done. So that'll be a good example to check out of that stuff. Okay. Well, cool. Hey, it was really nice to meet you, and I'm interested to check out your stuff. So I hope you all enjoyed that. This has been Robbie. We're here at the NAMM Show 2018 with Dynaudio, and make sure to check out his stuff.